Clay Travis joins us, the founder of OutKick. Joins us weekly. Clay, what's up, man? Hope things are well.
I'm doing well. How are y'all?
Doing well. We're still just dumbfounded at the Ryan Clark response to RG3. It just the idea that, I mean, I don't even, what are we allowed to talk about according to Ryan Clark?
Clay, have you ever considered ending a friendship over a WNBA foul call, flagrant upgrade at any point?
I mean, as a single guy, am I allowed to talk about anything since I don't have a wife, white or black?
That's a great point. I didn't even think about it from a single guy perspective. I don't think you're allowed to comment on women's athletics because you don't know what it's like to be a woman in any way.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I'm actually offended that you would even ask me a question related to the WNBA within that context. As a married man, I just frankly don't think you have the wherewithal to even be able to ask me about it.
I don't understand their plight at all.
Yes.
Yeah. So
how dare you?
Well, the funny thing about that, the funny thing about that, I mean, obviously, is under his own logic, Ryan Clark would not be able to explain what a white woman goes through because he's not married to a white woman. So his ability to analyze both sides of this equation is non-existent. So really, RG3 can only talk about what a white woman might deal with, and Ryan Clark should only talk about what a black woman might deal with. Now, all of this is patently absurd because if you were going to argue that someone did not have the right to talk about something, that defeats the entire purpose of sports, which is designed to appeal to everyone, regardless of their background. And it would suggest, if followed to its logical extension, that, for instance, none of us would be able to talk about what happens in a World Cup match because we are not actually from Argentina or we are not from France. And it defeats the entire purpose of sport in general, which is to unify everyone under a common set of rules and guidelines that apply to everyone: white, black, Asian, Hispanic, gay, straight, trans, non-trans, whatever identity politic version of the world you want to adopt. The scoreboard works the same for everybody, which is why, in general, I think so many people respond well to sports, because in a time when, as you can see in the world of politics, people can just decide not to tell you the truth if it doesn't benefit them politically when it comes to the health and physical abilities of the president of the United States. At least in sports, you would like to argue it is impossible to fake performance on the field or court.
Chad, what was your example with Angie?
Oh, my wife is Swedish and German, so I can only talk speed skating or Bundesliga from here on out. Hunt, you and I are
very funny.
Both Hunt and I are screwed when it comes to women's sports analysis at this point.
I can't understand what a hard foul is anymore.
I'll risk wading into those waters once again, Clay, and I'll say that I love this rivalry between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. It's clearly great for viewership for the WNBA. They had 2.7 million viewers on Saturday for this game. But I also think acting like they're equals as players is like saying Michael Jordan versus Dennis Rodman with the Bulls and the Pistons was the matchup and not Jordan Isaiah Thomas. I mean, she's a really good rebounder right now, and Caitlin Clark just set the all-time WNBA record for 25-point, 10-assist games. She's 2 games into her second season, and she's already broken the record for it. This is not a comparison between the players, right?
Yeah, look, I mean, you know what the most important thing that everything must have in order for people to care? You know what the most important ingredient for people to care is in any story? Conflict, right? Conflict. Because if it starts happily ever after, people tune away. Now, people claim that they don't like conflict, but in general, sports provides direct conflict, right? Best man or woman wins in a fight. Hopefully it's not a dude pretending to be a chick. Yeah. Best man, fastest man wins, right? It's you against someone else. So sport provides innate conflict. Here, the WNBA is having additional resonance because the WNBA has provided conflict for 29 or 30 years or whatever the heck the existence of the league is. Most people just don't care about women's basketball. That is what the WNBA has taught us. But people do care because of the Angel Reese conflict that began with the "you can't see me" gesture. It has given people a rooting interest. And I just got off my own OutKick show, and the thing that I would say about the WNBA in general is I feel like they may be blowing it. And let me give you guys two 21st century-esque examples of new audience benefiting existing sport. Tiger Woods, I believe in 1997, joins the PGA Tour and does not look like, and still does not look like, the average golfer on the PGA Tour. Viewership skyrockets. By and large, the new audience that Tiger Woods brought to the sport meant everybody got way richer, right?
Yep.
Whatever the purse was at a golf tournament skyrocketed, ratings soared, everybody got more endorsement money. The Tiger ship lifted, the Tiger tide lifted all ships. And by and large, the PGA welcomed Tiger and the new audience that he brought. Now, were there occasional conflicts? Yes. Did Tiger rustle some feathers in old school golf? Certainly. But by and large, I would say the golf world welcomed Tiger Woods immensely. How about Venus and Serena Williams? They don't look like, and still don't look like, the average top tennis players. They brought in a massive increase in viewership for the Women's Tennis Association, the WTA. And as a result, the Venus and Serena tide lifted all ships too. I would argue that Caitlin Clark is doing for women's basketball in the WNBA what Tiger did for golf and what Venus and Serena did for tennis. She is a white girl that doesn't look like the average top players in the WNBA right now. Not to say there aren't other good white players, just she doesn't look like most of the top WNBA players. And how are they responding to the Caitlin Clark tide? They're trying to drown her, and they're trying to drown themselves in it. So it is a uniquely ridiculous response, and I do wonder whether at some point in time, the way that they are responding to her, which is not how Tiger was responded to, is not how Venus and Serena were responded to, might end up taking the golden calf and burying it instead of appreciating it.
Yeah, well said. I do want to, speaking of responses, give props to Angel Reese in a way, because if she doesn't respond in the manner she did, isn't this rivalry over? I mean, it's a routine hard foul. If she doesn't get up all pissed off, it's just kind of kumbaya, is it not?
Well, I mean, it should have been a kumbaya, right?
Sure.
I don't think Angel Reese is smart enough to intentionally be doing this. I thought initially it might be a work, by which I mean, how many times have we seen guys shove each other at weigh-ins, slap each other sometimes, talk trash, entirely because they know, and it's a pay-per-view element, right? They know if they appear to hate each other, more people are likely to buy the fight, right? I mean, that's the reality. And then at the end of the fight, what do they almost always do in the UFC or in boxing? They hug each other, and they're like, thanks, bro. I just made another 20 million, right? Whether you won or lost. Now, I'm not saying the guys don't want to win. I think they're intensely competitive. They're putting their lives on the line for boxing and UFC. But pretending that you hate each other makes them both more money. So I really thought that there might be a little bit of a work going on where Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark behind the scenes are like, can you believe this? I'm making 10 million this year. If you and I didn't hate each other publicly, we'd each be making one. But in the immediate moment of that play, I think it was pretty clear that Angel Reese actually hates Caitlin Clark. And that might be good for their money too, but I don't think she's a good enough actress to fake that. Yeah,
that's fair. And second response I'm waiting on. Are we going to hear from the WNBA, who condemns racism, about the investigation that there were racist slurs tossed towards Chicago? I mean, they put out a statement for that.
It's all just an opportunity to everybody get together and say we condemn racism. I feel like,
of course we do.
And then nothing else happens.
You know, like, but if you're going to do it with the Indiana fans and Caitlin Clark fans,
I actually think it's more interesting than that. I mean, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese on social media, and I know we've written about this at OutKick, said she wants to basically beat the white girl up. If Caitlin Clark had shared a social media post where it said she wanted to beat the black girl up, I think they might suspend her for the whole season. And I'm not kidding about that.
Yeah.
And so you can't say we condemn racism and then allow somebody to be attacked by a player based on their race and claim that you are actually condemning racism. See, this is the big problem. And we talked about this on the OutKick show, and I talked about it on Clay and Buck. Since original sin is in the zeitgeist right now for Jake Tapper's book, the original sin of America is slavery, right? And so we have atoned, in my opinion, for that sin. And then a subsidiary sin of the original sin is racism, which is connected certainly to slavery. Here's the problem in 21st century America. We don't just have white to black racism anymore. We have black to white racism. We have black to Asian racism. We have Asian to Hispanic racism. Every race has racist in it. And when you are defining, as the WNBA is, racism as only possibly predicated from a white person to a black person, then you are not actually fighting racism, right? You're fighting one particular type of racism, which I would argue is highly unlikely to occur in a crowded arena. Why? Because the consequences of white to black racism are so incredible that if you were caught, as you guys well know,
Sure,
on video, when everyone in the entire arena has a phone in their hand taking video and audio at all moments, if you were a white guy or a white girl caught saying something racist on video, you would lose your job. You would immediately become a nationwide pariah. You would go viral. Your name would cease to exist as a normal person, and your life would cease to exist. There would be monumental consequences. In fact, far more monumental consequences than a fan would get for getting a DUI, right? Like if you told the average fan in that arena at the WNBA basketball game, hey, you can get caught on camera, video, saying something racist, or you can get wasted and get a DUI, every white person in the arena would choose to get a DUI over being caught saying something racist. Now, that doesn't mean that somebody might not say something, but if it isn't public yet, and we know the consequences for it, and in order to be heard doing it on the basketball court, you would have to be insanely loud, right? Somebody would have recorded it. It would be public now, and there would be some white person prostrate on the social media universe just being lambasted, and their life would effectively be over. So, given those scenarios at play, do I think it's likely that even if somebody is racist at a WNBA basketball game, and let me just say, the WNBA is basically made up of a fan base of lesbians and dads and moms taking their little girls to go watch Caitlin Clark play, right?
yes.
That doesn't seem like a fan base that is full of racists, in my always humble opinion. But if that did happen, you would already have seen it, and the consequences of it would.
The NCAA. It does suck for Zakai Ziggler that he may be less than 1 year away from all players having 5 years of eligibility, but I don't really understand the argument right now that he's making, given he had 4 years, he played 4 years, other than, hey, this sucks, I'm missing out on $2 million to come back and play. What is the argument for Ziggler? Does he have a chance?
I mean, he's basically just arguing that 4-year limitations on play are an antitrust violation and that you should be able to get 5. And if he won a 5th, he probably would sue and say, hey, you should be able to get a 6th, right? So, yeah, he has an argument. And by he has an argument, I mean there is a lawyer who will file the lawsuit. And maybe there's a judge who will believe that lawsuit has merit and will say, it's somewhat arbitrary. Here's the way that I would put it. Zakai Ziggler tore his ACL in February?
It was
or late January?
Mid-February, I think, against Arkansas. That's junior year.
Yeah. So if he had torn his ACL on November 1st instead of mid-February, he would have taken a medical red shirt that year and would have been able to play a fifth year next year, which would mean that he would be able to make several $1 million, presumably by playing, right? So it is an unfair situation to him, probably in his mind, that he lost one part of his season. And it's the most important part of the season, to be fair, right? Like what you do in February and March, and if you're fortunate enough to make the Final Four in April, is like 100 times as important as what you do in November and December in college basketball. So I feel for him. But he's basically just arguing that everybody should get 5 years, and the decision to allow 4 years to be played in 5 is arbitrary and an antitrust restriction, and he should be able to make more money. And we'll see what a judge says. I don't blame him for trying. I mean, if I had $4 million at stake and otherwise I was going to make $400,000, I mean, you might as well see if you can make the $4 million, right? Like, what does he lose? Yeah. Worst case scenario, he goes and plays somewhere in Europe, probably. Best case scenario, he gets paid several $1 million to get to play college basketball.
And Tennessee has one roster spot left on their.
It's perfect.
They've left one there, maybe just for this reason, knowing this court filing was going to happen.
Clay, we can be brief on this if you need to be, but I'm curious: is signing a loyalty pledge following a House settlement that I think eventually gets signed? I'm not sure if the judge will sign it or not. We're waiting on her to do that. Signing a loyalty pledge for the Power 2 conferences, is that any different than signing a 6th grade abstinence pledge?
It's really funny. Look, I think there are, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I feel like sometimes 90% of all sports and politics discussion is just legal court analysis now.
Yes.
And it is kind of wild. Like, there's nobody sitting around right now, debating. It seems to me it used to be much more centered on what people actually did as opposed to what a judge might do. I feel, I'm fortunate. It wasn't like I planned this. 20 years ago, I got a law license. So, I went and studied all this. But I don't remember when I graduated from law school in 2004 and took the bar in 2004 and then back-to-back years, 2004, 2005. In 2 different jurisdictions. I don't remember checking the headlines of sports stories and it being hugely influenced by whatever a judge did. And I don't remember, in the same vein, political stories being all about whatever the latest court decision has done. So, look, we are headed towards a world where eventually there is a defined set of rules that govern college athletics and create some form of competitive balance. That's where we're going to end up. I think we are still several years away from ending up there. And in the meantime, what judges are going to say, you can find smart lawyers on both sides who will tell you what a judge is going to rule. And this brings me to my favorite law school instruction, which was said at my law school graduation in 2004. So 21 years ago about this time. The speaker there said, 3 years ago, before we started law school, when somebody asked you, hey, let me give you this hypothetical, you could say with complete honesty, I don't know. Any legal question that you were asked under the sun, you could say, because you hadn't gone to law school yet, I don't know. Now, after spending 3 years in law school and after spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on your education, because now I think Vanderbilt Law School is like $80K a year. It's like $250,000 to get a law degree. You can say, when asked any legal question with 100% sincerity, that depends. And it is the truth. And, I got it somewhat then, but when I say the answer is that depends, Well, that depends on who the judge is. That depends on how the facts are seen. That depends on what the courts are going to say for years into the future. So whether it's Zakai Ziggler on can he have a 5th year of eligibility, that depends. Or the lawsuits about whether you can be forced to sign a pledge, committing yourself to the rules that everybody else wants you to be committed to in the Big Ten and the SEC, that depends as well. Nobody knows. That depends on what the judges say, what the courts say, and oftentimes who the judges are and where the courts are. But eventually, we are going to get a new set of rules. The question is, I don't know when that's going to be.
I'd love to see Clay in a courtroom defending the abstinence pledge.
Yes, yeah. Clay would say, that depends.
Yeah.
When asked about the
depends
abstinence
on the girl.
pledge. Yeah, that's
depends
right.
on the girl. If you had said to a 6th grader, it's a little bit more, it's a little bit easier to be abstinent if your option is Oprah Winfrey compared to let's say Livy Dunn.
What would Tim Tebow
there's
do?
a range.
And I'm sure the
Tim Tebow,
What would Tim Tebow do?
The 6th graders are saying, my 6th grade self didn't know I was going to be at this great party.
Oprah to Livy Dunn is amazing.
This great prom party my senior year. I didn't know that.
You could also say your 6th grade self, didn't know what Chloe was going to end up looking like when she was 18 compared to when she was 12.
There was one kid with
it's a little bit different.
That's why it's best to answer, even if you don't know. That depends. Yeah. Instead of I don't know. That could have been the answer in 6th grade.
There was only one kid in class in 6th grade who had peach fuzz as a mustache. Everyone else is still trying to have that.
That kid didn't sign the pledge, much like Tennessee Athletics. He went ahead and passed on that pledge.
Yeah, that's right. Clay, thank you, man. Great visit.
Yeah, and by the way, a lot of them wouldn't have signed the pledge if you'd known you were going to be the starting quarterback in high school. Maybe you would have felt differently.
Again, it all depends.
Yeah,
that's what we learned today.
It all depends.
Yeah. Later,
Thanks,
man.
Clay.
Matt Leinart used to be a fat kid. 6th grade probably way easier for Matt Leinart to say, "Hey, I'm going to be a virgin for life," and then he ended up at USC and he saw all those girls in the USC. Sweatshirts on the sideline, the sweaters.
Laguna Beach.
And he thought to himself, man, this is a tougher decision than when I was fat 12.
Thinking he's a star senior high school quarterback. Man, tough break when I saw that abstinence pledge.
Are they going to choose me or Reggie?
Grade.
They're going to choose me or Reggie tonight.
Yeah.
Well, way tougher choice, I think, when you're running out on the field in the Coliseum and the girls in the sweaters are doing high leg kicks.
Yeah. At that point. Later, man. Good to catch up.
Yeah, appreciate y'all.
Yeah, man.
Thanks a lot.
There he is, Clay Travis.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah, it was great.